fifth dimension imp as my pet. And now I have it.
Would you look at this guy floating around in the Lucifer void? What a bozo!
So let's jump all the way back to 1987 with Superman issue number 11, The Name Game, where it seems like the fifth dimension imp, Mr. Mxyzptlk, is trolling all of Marvel by impersonating who seems to be the Beyonder. And instead of using the Beyonder's name, they're using the name Ben DeRoy, which is, of course, just all the mixed up letters of the name Beyonder. So, if that isn't weird enough, it seems like Mxyzptlk has some sort of omnipresent, omniscient power, even over what Marvel is going through right now. And in 1987, not much was actually going on in Marvel at that time.
The 70s and the 80s, you're not missing anything. I looked into it. There's a gas shortage and a flock of seagulls. That's about it.
And Secret Wars was some years before this, and it was really funny to see the Mxyzptlk fifth dimension imp trying to impersonate the Beyonder in a DC comic book. Man, that must have really gotten under the skin of the DC and Marvel executives at the time. I'm sure there was a lot of banter back and forth. I'm sure there was somebody was angry over there. No doubt about it.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
But what's funny here is that the fifth dimension is supposed to be imagination as a concept. Like the dreaming is sort of the collective unconscious of DC Comics. Imagination was supposed to be the fifth dimension. It is non-spatial. And there are some comics that do mention that the fifth dimension is non-spatial, beyond geometry, beyond math, beyond space and time. And even in the 1997 Grant Morrison Justice League series, it does mention that the fifth dimension is outside of creation and capable of harming some of the higher tier and mid-tier angels, such as the Spectre and Zariel. Because in this series, it looks like one of the imps, not Mxyzptlk and not Batmite, but another imp, had imprisoned the Spectre and essentially blindsided him and sucker punched him and stuck him in a rock for all eternity. And it was very interesting to me to dive into the fifth dimension and what it's all about. And really what you need to come away with is that the fifth dimension is supposed to be imagination. It's non-spatial, everybody. It is not supposed to be like fifth dimension in terms of geometry or classic physics. Physics have no place here.
You have no power here.
Physics doesn't matter to the imps. The imps' location in their fifth dimension is beyond all of time, all of space. Physics don't even matter. So yeah, I see a lot of arguments that are based around the fifth dimension being spatial in some manner, and it's just not true. And it's just a misconception of scaling wikis and bad other content creators not really going into a deep enough, investigation about what the fifth dimension is. But anyway, it's supposed to be imagination. There aren't really any limits to what it can do. It's near infinite, if not total infinite magic as a power. Anything that you can imagine is what Mxyzptlk and Batmite can do. So in this sense, in this comic book, it looks like Mxyzptlk is impersonating the Beyonder, Ben DeRoy, and he wants to really screw with Superman, of course, as he always does. And in doing so, he gets close with Lois Lane and eventually asks her to marry him. And shockingly, Lois agrees.
I may not know my flowers, but I know a bitch when I see one.
Wow, that's cold. But what's even colder is that immediately after that, he notices an even hotter girl, and he decides to go try to be with her instead, right after proposing to Lois Lane. And just moments later after that, he then kills her and knocks her head off of her body. And yeah, this comic is wacky, but it's one of my favorites that I like to tell people about because the Beyonders essentially being, trolled by DC Comics, and it was great. I love the idea that Mxyzptlk knows all about the Beyonder and tries to impersonate him within the scope of the DC boundary. So yeah, it was a fun little comic. Nothing really major happens in it. It's later revealed, of course, that it is the Mxyzptlk imp the entire time. It wasn't the Beyonder, and of course Superman knew it the entire time. So yeah, it was just a fun little thing that I like to cover here. But it is a interesting topic to see what others think of an imp with infinite magic and the power of imagination versus reality warping. Well, how far does the Beyonder actually go? It's really a cool question and something that bothers me a lot, and I would love to know what you think about that as a viewer and a reader and an enthusiast of Marvel and DC. Can the Beyonder defeat the infinite imagination power of a fifth dimension imp? Your thoughts appreciated.